So we're back with setting the ideal environment part two with Joseph Gantra with Gantra Enterprise. And so we're looking at what it looks like to establish the right internal environment to allow your team to explicitly grow in a quantum way. So without further ado, you got to paint a picture for them. No matter what happens, they're not going to understand anything unless they actually have direction. And what does that look like? Well, obviously, this sounds easy. However, when taking a deep look at it, it's actually a lot more complicated than grabbing the paper and the crayons. Okay, let's just go. Let's just have some fun. Let's just, diddle daddle, if you want to call it like that, on the canvas. Well, as it's actually way more complicated and diverse than that. You want to know why? Because this picture involves several moving parts. So, how does this look like? You have to have essentially all moving parts of it. So a horizon, sun, mountains, birds, flowers, path of, and of course, lastly, yourself. You're like, what do you mean yourself? We'll get to that next week. So how is the horizon established? You see, you got to be able to see things from, I would say, at least 50,000 feet out. Like, you got to be way out there. So a vision of a leader, a vision of a leader's vision starts with the ability to have others see the heights and possibilities. You see, they got to be able to understand the big picture to a certain degree. That doesn't mean that you reveal to them everything in great detail as far as what is exposed to them. They need to be actually able to say, okay, so is it that this is all about? And so this is where you get to see the heights and the possibilities. Each person will determine how far they truly want to go. So here's an example. I forget the person's last name, but his first name's Gary. And he's always saying some pretty wild things. And I thought some of these wild things were actually really far-fetched until, well, here's the thing. If you live in a capitalistic society, why not challenge certain aspects of your organization to foster that capitalistic type of culture within your organization? So what does that look like? That looks like no vacation time. You take as much vacation as you want. And you're like, well, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of it. So you see, you just revealed yourself in less than 5 seconds. Well, I would take as much vacation as I wanted. Here's the other thing. If someone took off 20 days of vacation, so essentially that's potentially close to a working month in 6 months, and they're like, okay, well, I've only been here for like a year and a half. Would that be somewhat of a concern because you have no idea what the next 6 months are looking like? You still got the summer and the fall and obviously the winter. So you know they're going to take over a month of vacation time if they already offloaded a lot of their vacation time into the early stages of the year. So taking that into consideration, all the person's really doing is saying, here's your rope, choke yourself, the work has to get done. And if you're not being able to be an actual contributor, an actual, fully invested person to be in this team, because there's going to be people in here that are, it's probably just not going to be a good fit for you. So by cultural standards, you'll see how the parts tend to move. And then what happens is when they move, people will actually just start to fade off. And then you get someone that's actually stable and a high performer. They stay. So then that organization or that group of individuals will actually, it'll take a little bit. They'll like grab on and maybe drop a little bit, but eventually they'll like continue to surpass their competition. Why? Because the culture is just set at such a high standard. And that's just what happens, okay? So the responsibility of the leader is to create an environment that the team are the only ones that put limits on themselves. So you got to be able to create a safe space. You got to be able to create a space where they are able to fully utilize what they are thinking about in the sense of, okay, so if we have all these ideas, what is the ideal situation? What is the ideal outcome? What is the ideal formula, or the ideal approach, or is it the ideal of many different things that are coming your way, so that you're able to actually understand, okay, no matter what may fall short throughout this process, because no matter how many times you have a creative plan, there's going to be parts of this plan, logistics, etc., that are going to kind of fall through the cracks. So you're going to fall down to your systems or your routines or what you have in place, as far as like, okay, if this happens, then we can do that. So that's how this kind of like pinballs back and forth. So the responsibility of the leader is to create an environment that the team are able to be the ones that put themselves with the limits. So the leader is establishing an environment where they're essentially thinking that they're limitless. Paul Harvey actually said this very well. A blind man is limited by his limits of touch. An ignorant man's world is limited to his knowledge. A great man's world is limited by his vision. So there you have it. You will be the limiter of yourself. Okay, so how would the sun fit in? You're like, what are you talking about? You see, over the course of many, many years and many, many decades of whatever, life, career, all these really potentially uncontrollable moving parts, eventually, it might not be soon, but it will be definitely later in life when you're going to be looking at yourself and saying, what is this all about? Well, I'll tell you one thing. This is where warmth and hope are birthed. This is basically where the sun is at. So you can embrace it now or embrace it later. Light brings the optimism out of people. You see, you have to be able to show people the positive, the encouraging, the type of collaborative culture where you're able to actually say, we're banding together to create an outcome. And this is where optimism comes out in people. So one of the greatest functions of a leader is to keep hope alive. If you cannot keep hope alive, then it's probably not going to be a long-lasting endeavor, to be honest, because as soon as hope fails, so does everything else. That's pretty much it right there in a nutshell. So believe it or not, Napoleon said this: leaders are dealers in hope. Okay, so even Napoleon Hill figured this out hundreds of years ago. So it's right there. Why would mountains be mentioned? Well, see, every vision has its challenges. Every vision has its obstacles. Every vision is always faced with some type of opposition. You see, Edwin Land, founder of Polaroid, for those of you who don't know who Polaroid or what Polaroid is, well, go to the University of Google and maybe that'll help you out. So first thing you teach a person is to feel that vision is very important and nearly impossible. That draws out the drive in a winner. You see, a winner has to be challenged. A winner has to be someone who is actually able to see things and experience things in a certain manner that seem to be, it's always a challenge because they are driven by the challenge. These are the ones that will always rise up when everyone else falls. So no matter what is presented, a true winner will never quit. This is why they win, and quitters never win. So always understand the moving parts of a group that you are leading or responsible with. You see, many people want to be the leader, but they're not able to be accountable or responsible as the leader. So wanting and thinking that you can do it, so doing and thinking that you can do it are two different things. So since this can potentially be one of the leader's greatest internal mountains that were never seen, because they never actually were able to actually understand all of the moving components of the potential of their team. So a leader has to be fully mindful of who can actually play the best choreographed opportunity, potentially, I'm not too sure exactly how to say this, but you got to be able to create something out of nothing. So those that can create complete optimism and be very resourceful and understanding that our resources might be limited, but if they're able to really be able to see things in a manner that no one else really can, but you see that there's result in there and there is problem solving in there, and that does make sense on an approach, then you have potentially one of the greatest assets you could potentially ever ask for. But if a leader does not see the potential within each player or person that they are responsible for, then they are literally this is the beginning of the end for them, because they'll never be able to fully utilize each team member, which then over time, because you're going to see people that are going to change over the course of months and a few years, they are eventually going to say, I can't do this anymore. I got to move on. So there you go. And here we are, setting the ideal environment, part 3. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, work hard and stay humble.